So, yes, we are live on Facebook.
Live on IG.
All right, bet. So we're not going to hold up anybody's time. Welcome to another episode of Eavesdrop. As y'all see in the title, today we're going to be talking about gun violence in DC. We are also going to be we are also going to be talking about and addressing the Cornel West letter to Harvard and how all of these things are interwoven, why they all matter to what it is, where we're at, in the position that we're at, whether it be in DC or any other large metropolitan area and city that we find ourselves in, having these same issues at a global, or I'll say national level, because I can't speak for what's happening outside of the United States. But before we go ahead and do that, I just want to do a little bit of house cleaning. Can you please, if you are with us now, go ahead, hit the like button, hit the share button, please subscribe. That helps us out. And it is free of cost. And also, as the vice president of DC Young Democrats, I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't tell you all that Thursday is our general body meeting. Please join us. We're also trying to build there. We need people's help. We need people's assistance because a lot of the solutions that we're going to be talking about, as much as we address the problem, are going to be in actually doing work and actually holding people accountable, because we can't continue to actually, place blame on people without having a discussion amongst ourselves. So with that being said, we're going to dive straight into it. And unlike other days, I'm not going to jump in immediately with an article because here in DC, this is where I was born and raised and have grown into the person that I am currently. So this one is going to be more of a conversational piece. Of course, we are going to use articles and things of that nature as we always do, because I think that having a discussion in an appropriate way matters. But if you are here with us in DC, basically what we are seeing with and dealing with right now, I wouldn't even say an uptick in violence. The violence has always been there. Unfortunately, there haven't always been as many casualties as a byproduct of the violence, but the violence has always existed. The violence has always been there. People are aware of the violence. And with that being said, right now we're in a situation where as wealth calcification and the wealth gap calcifies, or I'll say to be more specific, the racial wealth gap calcifies, we are going to have situations where the outcomes of abject poverty, hopelessness, lack of accountability, and all of these different things create. So we had a shooting. What was it? What street was it on?
You referring to the Nationals?
So we had one at the National Stadium. Then we had a young lady who was shot on MLK.
Yeah.
Multiple people who were shot on MLK. Unfortunately, the young lady died. I'm not sure of the current status of the mom, but I know she was also in critical condition. But then we had the shooting at Nat Stadium, and then we had the shooting most recently at what?
That Logan Circle?
Yeah,
Logan Circle.
I believe so. And so right now, as we saw, CNN covered the story. We'll go over the article where Chief Conti is expressing his anger and frustration. But what I really wanted to say was, and this is, I told the wife the other day, I kind of felt bad that, part of me was just like, this is because this is what I've been trying to explain to people, is that these outcomes are going to start spilling over into other people's backyards.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, because people don't think that these issues are of their own, it has been allowed to get to a place where we have to take drastic measures of accountability, because today I want everybody to understand. And again, you can call in. The link is in the actual description on our YouTube feed, or if you go over to our Facebook, you can actually see the link to call in and lend your words if you would like to participate in the discussion. This is a platform for community discussion. You do not have to agree with me. You do not have to be somebody of quote unquote importance. Everybody inputs counts, because one of my solutions and one of the things that I firmly believe is that discourse is the thing that gets us to the other side. Because what happens in this moment, in these times, there is a lot of blame game that goes around. On one hand, people are screaming at the mayor, and then we have people who are calling and asking the community to take accountability. I'm a firm believer that all sides have to sit back and reflect. And just to put the mayor on the side right now, because I don't think that, even though she is the leader of the city, it's completely fair to attach this specific issue to a failure of her administration, based on the facts that we've been dealing with this issue prior to her administration and prior to Vince Gray's administration. This has been a ongoing matter. So there is a level of accountability today that we're going to be talking about that community people have to actually do. But before I keep going, because I know I got a lot to say today. But what are your thoughts on everything that transpired, and just kind of go ahead and lean into, for me, what do you think about everything that has gone on, the reactions, and what is your specific take on all of these matters?
All right, where do I begin? So, I'm also a lifelong Washingtonian. I lived in Southwest DC all my life. Not particularly that part of Southwest that's near the National Stadium. I'm more so by Bald Eagle Recreation Center, Hadley Hospital, that other side of Martin Luther King Avenue that people tend to forget about. By
Mm-hmm.
Lecky Elementary. I think that area is called Bellevue.
So Bellevue is at the bottom. I think it is attached to it.
Yeah.
So somebody can correct me if I'm wrong.
I'm originally from that Bellevue area.
Because we're in Bellevue right now.
Well, yeah. I mean, the southwest side of that Bellevue area. So here's the thing. There's a few things that you just understand if you live long enough within DC. So DC is home to the FBI, the CIA, the ATF, the Naval Academy, Navy Yard. It's if the government really wanted DC to be the safest community, the safest place in the world, the resources are here at our disposal. So I'm going to put that on the table for one, because in my opinion, that fact alone undergirds a lot of what I have as a critique of the city living here my whole life. If safety was that much of a concern with all of those resources, especially when you're able to dispose in other cities, the FBI, the CIA, all of these things, for crime to be such an issue with those amount of...
So are you saying you're an advocate for using the FBI and national federal organizations to taper violent crime in DC?
I'm not saying that I'm an advocate of it. I'm just saying these are the things that our city has at its disposal. That's one.
Okay.
We have literally the Federal Bureau of Engravement, where my mom worked for a time. She used to always tell me, son, one sheet of the paper that I see every day could change all of our lives in our community. So not only is we the home of damn near everything defense. We're also the home of everything when it comes to money. It gets printed here.
Mm-hmm.
But yet we also live in a city where, as we speak, there are plots of land that's worth billions. We have the richest person in the world that live what, a couple blocks away from us? A couple blocks away. But yet we always have a budget shortfall
Mm-hmm.
when it comes to education. We're always cutting programs out that would help out plenty of
Go ahead.
people in the community.
Mm-hmm.
There's never enough money for programs when it comes to the poor in our community. But yet we have to sit back and watch dog parks get built. Every corner there's a crane where they're building up something new. But when it comes time for budgets, there's never enough money for the youth. There's never enough money for these programs that we know work. There's never enough money for the things that benefit the people in DC.
So are you saying, so as part of your critique, the are you saying this to say that part of your critique is centered and anchored in and around you believe that this violence is due to a lack of resources?
Not even a lack, the resources are here.
Mm-hmm.
It's the way that politicians, since forever, since my life,
Mm-hmm.
my whole
Get your
life,
words.
have always put profit and business and government agencies and nonprofits in front of the people who needed it the most. Everybody has always taken money since I've been born. All you hear is people that have taken money, government money, for years and years and years and years, and they've either stole it, squandered it, or they did whatever they wanted to.
Okay.
Think about it. We go to these community. I've been to these community meetings. These people come to these community meetings every day, and they tell you straight to your face, "Yo, we've done these deals for these plots of land. We've done these deals back in the 2000s. We're just here to let you know."
But let's stay on the violence and give a and because what
How do I tie? Okay, I get it. Let's tie it all in.
Mm-hmm.
So you have a community, right?
Mm-hmm.
A community who has, let's take that Southwest community, for example.
Mm-hmm.
They have literally used, the government seized that land in 2005, 2004. They seized that land
Mm-hmm.
in order to build the national stadium. Who benefited from that and who lost? The young people, the youth in that community. Those were the people who lost out, who weren't able to recoup the money that they lost in using eminent domain. The people who lived there, who suffered through all of those years of neglect that those communities, F Street, L Street, K Street,
Mm-hmm.
those communities lost out because of the disinvestment. The disinvestment. It's amazing. A lot of the crime that happens within them communities are right next to. How could you have that much crime right next to the Navy Yard? Understand how much violence happens in DC, and literally the buildings that are responsible for protecting the people
Mm-hmm.
are blocks away. Blocks away. You can literally, Pennsylvania, the White House is here. If you move literally 8 to 10 blocks away from Pennsylvania Avenue, there's abject poverty.
Mm-hmm.
What I'm telling people is that I believe that a lot of the violence that we see in DC is by design. It's by design.
So, okay, let's take that and let's go with that, right? I disagree in the sense that the resources or where we're placing the actual accountability. for me, right? Let's have a conversation
Mm-hmm.
because you said a lot.
Mm-hmm.
When you talk about organizations and when you talk about nonprofits and when you talk about these people who actually get the funding to do the work in a large amounts of the time, in what you just said, that they don't do the service, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so this is another issue, and this is why I wanted to have a conversation because I think a lot of the accountability has to go back into our community and the vetting processes and the things and the mechanisms that we are having to put in place to actually create the outcomes. Because too many times I hear people talk about, well, something is just the culture, something is just normal, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just because something is normal does not mean that it is good. If for every time somebody told me that, if they understood that what they were saying is that the coding that we actually are navigating with is the very thing that is causing the problems. What do I mean and why do I say that? So, you have, we just had a march the other day, right?
Yep.
There was confusion around because one community person said that this young man shouldn't lead the march because he and his brand is attached to something that is detrimental to our community, right?
Mm-hmm.
The community, in not being able to have a nuanced discussion, immediately attached that to hating and being negative.
Mm-hmm.
When the larger conversation is look, we have to put things in place because when we talk about why we're getting the behavior that we're getting, it is because people are incentivized to do negativity, to be salacious, to do and move in the manner in which we're moving. Because why? Media pushes it. We give people clout because we as a community don't celebrate level headedness. We as a community don't celebrate politics. We as a community shun those things. So when we have a leader or when we have actual people who do the work day in, day out, we have a bad retention rate. Because when people want to talk about community, what we have to understand about community is an institution made up of a series of families that have common interests and values. The problem is nobody can come together, have a discussion, and meet at the common interest values. Because on one hand, people are just saying, oh, we can do whatever we want. Anything goes. Because why? The markets are driven that way. Because you have people who would say, you know what? I disagree with your lifestyle, but I'm not going to say anything. Why? Because I'll be deemed a hater or or because it helps me make money. So again, when we talk about nonprofits, when we talk about organizations, when we talk about elected leaders who get money, who get power, who get influence, we as a community give it to them because we do not vet people, because we give influence to anybody because we are the most hopeful idiots around. So guess what? Guess what happens? Because we don't ever have a discussion around compounded interest. And what do I mean by compounded interest? Because we're talking about community. What am I talking about? Because the girl who got the little girl who got shot, right?
Mm-hmm.
Who's dead and gone. We're talking about these things as if they happen in a vacuum. So we have to understand that there was a series of balls being dropped before you get that outcome. So when I hear people just talking about these things, getting upset. It's like, why are you upset when we participate in behavior? Look, it should not be normal that people are walking around having 4, 5, and 6 kids when you can't afford them. It's not normal, and you bums are trash if you're not taking care of your kids. We need to shun people for things like that. And I'm not saying that when you get canceled and shunned that you cannot work your way back into it, but just like politics, part of the game is about incentivizing the code that you want. So people love to say, play the game, 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 right? When you play a game, the games have a particular code to get to an outcome, and you have incentives along that it forces you to reproduce the behavior that is going to project you to the end to complete the actual game, right? Mm-hmm. So when you see a person, for example, like say an AOC or the squad, the reason why you don't see them saying anything is because they're playing a game, and part of that game is getting vetted. So when you do and perform a specific behavior, the person you're playing the game with understands that you are acting out of code. What has to happen in our community is we have to drastically change the coding, the social policies before we can even get to the legal policies. When you have the de facto and the de jure, they influence and work in tandem with each other. We have to have rules. Am I militant? No, I am not. What I am telling you is if we don't have rules in place and we don't have mechanisms to exile, we will continue to get the same things. Why? Because there is no consequence for their actions. It is no consequence, and you get to just do because everybody's going to say, oh, well, you can't critique that person. You're a hater. You're a hater, for example. And we're going to get into the article. Matter of fact, let's pull up the article. Let's go into the article because I'm going to make a point. And again, call in if you want to have a discussion because I know some people are going to get mad about this because it's all tied together because we toxic and we don't take accountability. And that's our problem. That's our problem because I have mine. You can have your critiques of Mayor Bowser. I got mine. I worked for it. But guess what? Don't do no more fucking press conferences. And why? You can tell when you don't do them, I'll be the bad guy. You can tell the ward and say, Devon said don't do no more press conferences. Why? Because it doesn't do anything. It is a code. It is a coddling mechanism. It is nothing that can be done in a situation because I watched it. When people are reacting, policy is not reactive. People are asking her questions. No, that's not how it's supposed to go. There should already be a plan in place. So no more press conferences. None. For what? Why are you doing? And anybody can have an issue with me and say, oh, no, you're crazy. I've been on both sides of them. It don't matter. It don't matter because that's not the issue. Like you just said, we got the resources. We got a myriad of things. But guess what? You can't do any of that. You can't do any of that without the common interests and values and plans in place to actually move and push the mayor in a way that is designed for us. But y'all just want her to come out and talk and coddle y'all because y'all want politicians to coddle y'all. Sick of it. Because that's the other thing. Every time y'all ask these elected officials to go in and do something about something that should be handled by public discourse, you're giving up your power and your leverage. And then you want to cry. And then you want to cry about people being tyrants. I have to be a tyrant because the society is acting like fucking babies. Mm-hmm. Fucking babies. Yeah. Don't ban menthols. If people want to smoke themselves to death and they know what's on the back of the package, let the ass smoke to death. Because it's sickening to have to sit here and watch people have zero accountability. Yes, government is a problem. But we're going to talk about Joe Biden because he, when we get into this article, he's more of an issue in what we're dealing with and what the mayor is trying to address and what all black mayors have been trying to address since he incentivized the criminalization of black men being isolated from a market. With that being said, let's go into it because you, from Brother Daquan himself, this is an article from the Washington Post. It is from August 15th, 2001. DC man convicted of 9 gang murders. So, a 30-year-old district man, part of a ruthless drug gang that was adept in hunting down people who threatened its marijuana market. And you have a marijuana market. Why? Because the streets is a manifestation of black Americans being forced out of regular labor, so people had to survive to make a way. This is the foundation and the pillars, right? Because we're talking about accountability. This is where government is creating a something. Because I disagree that it's designed that way. People have created a something and walked away, and now it just moves on its own. But was convicted yesterday by a federal court of jury racketeering drugs, weapons, and 9 murder charges, the largest number of murder charges lodged against a single defendant in Washington court. Let's move down some. So, prosecutors have alleged that the gang built a lucrative marijuana business in the area of the 200 block of K Street Southwest, killing 18 people who were competitors. Its members also kidnapped and robbed to make money. The prosecution estimated that the group netted at least $14 million in marijuana profits. They were kidnappers, they were robbers, and they were murderers, said Assistant U.S. Attorney, I don't know how to pronounce his name, Anjali Chattaverde, I apologize, in her closing remarks to the jury last month. They did it for 2 reasons. They did it to enrich themselves and attack their enemies. Move down. In 1993, the gang's original members, Wayne Perry, pleaded guilty to charges involving 5 killings and got life. But the organization still prospered under Perry's friend, Vincent Hill, prosecutors said. Hill enlisted numerous lifelong friends, including co-defendants Samuel Chin Carson, Sean Bertie Coates, Jerome Pimp Martin, William Draper Sweeney, prosecutors said. He and Martin were convicted this month of murder, racketeering, and drug distribution charges. Jury deliberations continue today for Sweeney on murder, drug, weapons, and racketeering charges. The jury also must decide on murder and weapons offenses for Coates. Now, Daquan,
Yes.
before I get back into my bag, please tell me what you need to tell me from the article that we just read.
So what I wanted to do was just set a frame for what it is that we're looking at when we're looking at that particular area where the National Stadium's shooting happened.
Mm-hmm.
So you have K Street and you have L Street, which is a part of that Greenleaf area that's not too far. That's maybe a block away from the National Stadium, where a lot of that shooting had happened. What I'm telling people is that, and when I say it's by design, this is what I mean. I mean that particular area was neglected. The area was neglected for so many years, where you literally had, I've seen this with my own eyes in my side of Southwest, where you have police who will literally watch families walk past open air drug markets and do absolutely nothing. these people were able to amass and terrorize a community for years. That was 1993. And before then, it was Wayne Perry, which was the 70s and the 80s. So you have open air drug markets that are in the same area where you have FBI, you have all of these resources, yet you're watching a community of people commit these crimes that you know that you have the resources to do something about. So it's designed because anybody else, it would have been a criminal charge brought against these people.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes.
With the same level of grit, resilience that our people have shown, did they have to participate? When you talk about open drug air markets and being neglected and police neglecting it, my question might be, because my question is, if we know America is against us, if we know that there are already things put in place to our demise, when do we stop and say that era of people are problematic because they participated willingly, because they prioritize self over community? Yeah, the police gonna sit right there. Why? Because they don't. We know America is racist. So why move in a way? But let me guess. They're apolitical. Let me guess. It's all about the bag. Let me guess. Because nobody cares. Everybody fake cares. I just want to know. Is that a plausible line of reasoning to say that if the understanding of our whole time in America has been what it has been, why in the 70s and 80s and 90s? And again, I completely understand why, because you're locked out of a market. But when can we have the conversation and people take self-accountability and go and say, damn, I fucked up my own community too?
And this is why I go so hard at the elders. Because to be honest, this is their problem to fix. It's their problem to fix. If you were born in that era and you participated in that era, in the 70s, in the 80s, in the 90s, if you are 40, if you are 50, and you are 60, and you sat and you participated in these things, why are you not out in front? Why are we always looking at the 30-year-olds, the millennials, the 20-year-olds? Why are we always looking at us to do things that are supposed to be done in this community that elders participated in?
Because
it don't make sense.
The narrative is we lazy and that we just don't want to do the work.
No, but y'all destroyed the community. It's y'all.
Because they love to say we lost, but no, which I agree with. We are lost, but we can't. But every time I try to have a conversation about why we lost, why we reckless, why we chase the clout, why we do the things that we do, everybody wants to absolve accountability. Because see, this is the thing, right? This is the thing, and people are gonna be mad at me. You know,
I don't care.
I've tried to have conversations with people. And so let's talk about it, right? And let's talk about the self-aggrandizement. Let's talk about, again, how we are stifled by ignorance, stifled by lack of accountability, because the whole Wayne Perry situation, Rayful Edmonds, the whole era in itself just encapsulates in a time, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we know here in DC, we have the Free Tony Lewis campaign.
Mm-hmm.
The discussion is that we need to rally behind and free Tony Lewis. Now, I'm all for getting out non-violent offenders who have been locked up as a result of being targeted by American government through policy, right? All for that. I'm all for addressing recidivism rates. I'm all for those things. But let's have an honest conversation, because I think that people, because of the proximity to certain people, we allow people to do fucked up behaviors and not hold them accountable because they're a friend, right? Or a family member. In no way, shape, or form should we be having a conversation about freeing Tony Lewis without using Tony Lewis as a weapon to free hundreds of thousands more. You can be the last person out. Because why? You actually deserve to be in jail. Because you were a general, sir. You, even though you may not have pulled the trigger, we know how these things go. Let's not play stupid. But what do we have? We have a council member who is using political and social capital and energy to build a campaign around a person who we can say by fact has actually created the environment, a pioneer of the environment that we are in right now. Because these are the people who were glorified. But I'm a hater. It's okay. I'm a hater. I'm wild. I'm reckless. But why, Trayon, council member, would you, again, I'm not even saying don't address the issue of him being in jail, but if we're going to talk about being a political strategist, how about let's actually use that as a way to free many more? But see, people don't understand the numbers game because it's always about self. It's always about self. When we talk about the people on the streets, and I'm not even going to get into the Conti thing. I know him personally. I agree with some of the comments that he made in terms of non-violent crime offenders should be locked up and done away with. We can backspat on that, but I agree with that. And I also agree with the point that you made in that you should have had this same energy at the first homicide. Because again, I know he's been in the space, but again, that's why I said let's pull it away from Muriel Bowser for a second. Because she inherited the shit. If you really want to be honest, this is an issue that we've had as a community since that era. But again, we're talking about freeing a pioneer of the coding that we have in place now. Again, a general, not a grunt, a general who had large amounts of terrain.
And it's crazy because it's happening everywhere. You got campaigns to free Larry Hoover. You got the dude in New York out. He's already out. Like they're
Why? Because why? No accountability. And what people don't understand is you're indirectly, and this is what I need people to understand. Lack of consciousness, lack of understanding does not actually remove the consequence. Just because you do not understand what you are doing does not mean you will not suffer the consequence. Yes. You people do not know what you are doing. Because when you do that, you glorify it. You romanticize it. Because everybody wants to be, what was the dude name on American Gangster?
Which one?
With Denzel, what was...
What area?
New York.
Frank Luke? No, not
yes,
Frank. Frank
it was.
Lucas.
Yes, it was him. But again, we look up to those things. But again, we have coding in the community where you have people crying about this and crying about that. And I'm going to tell you like this. Everybody in the Wilson building got bullshit with them. Why? Because they're human. It's just about actually engaging it. Mm-hmm. So when I hear, I don't even do the whole, well, this person is this person. All of us got bullshit. I have bullshit with me. But guess what? What happens is you can launch a campaign to free Tony Lewis Jr. while at the same time be moving in a way where you say you're trying to address gun violence. The line of reasoning does not work. And it does not work. Why? Because you do not understand that you are normalizing this. Because at the same time that you're doing that, the casualties of violence are increasing. Because, like as I started off saying, violence has always been there. It's just that we are having more casualties.
I wouldn't even say more It's been years where we've had way more.
This is it. It was going down. And this is where
I think it's just the areas that it's spread to be honest with you. It's the areas. Because you go anytime, you can look up any time of year, certain parts of the South Side has always sustained a high level of violence. Always. It's the fact that it's in Logan Circle, where people eat high end. It's in the National Stadium, where if I were to continue on my timeline, after all of that happens and the land is pretty much spit, now you start to have people come in and say, okay, we want to build the National Stadium.
Mm-hmm.
In 2005, DC comes, we need that land. Haven't addressed any of the issues. And granted, I do agree that there needs to be accountability as far as people participating there, but you're not even addressing the families who aren't participating in these arenas. You're not addressing the children who aren't participating in these things. You're just literally letting people suffer. And literally the Navy Yard is right here.
Mm-hmm.
All of the government buildings are right here. All of the help in the work. And that's what the most, I feel like that's the worst slap in the face as a DC resident is that I can walk merely blocks away and see the department that is supposed to do something, and yet it overlooks the very people who live.
So you have an issue with the fact that you feel like the city didn't care about it until it was happening in areas where...
To this day, the city doesn't care about citizens. To this day. It ain't something that, no, it's to this day. That's why when I look at people get upset, don't get upset. Don't get on the TV and grandstand like you care about people.
Man.
Stop it. We don't want to hear it.
This is true.
We don't want to hear it. Because you've been not caring. Go look at the budget and tell me where the care is. Go look at the budget.
Because that's what the care be.
Go look at the budget.
The care packages.
Go look at the budget. Go look at that education budget and compare it to that police budget. And you'll see where the care is.
And speaking of care in that way, this is why, again, when we talk about wealth calcification and all of those different things, and I'm glad you brought up the budget, because I want the streets to know. And if you see in this video, please, I have no beef with streets at all. I do think we need to be accountable and hold people accountable, because I think you can be street, make your money without killing people. I think that part of the reason why the streets is dry is because of the abhorrent violence. If it was mechanized in a way, you all would be able to thrive. But this is where my thing is I want to create a bridge with the professional class and the streets. Because I believe what comes from that is a more organized effort. I'm not against the streets at all, but I do think that it would be better served if y'all would understand that there are bigger bags to chase. We can chase way bigger bags. And the reason that I say that is because you brought up the budget. Look, we talking about bags and subsidies. When the DC Infrastructure Academy first came down the pipe, I'm like, yo, this is a way where we can position people to actually be able to thrive in an industry that they were once penalized for. I said, look, let's take the DC Infrastructure Academy because there are courses and around cannabis farming, the hydroponics, and all of those different things. Let's allow people to get certified. You get the certification, then you are actually subsidized. Let's make some good of that bullshit ass, what do you call it? Opportunity zones, and say, okay, if you are operating in an opportunity zone, you have to take on to be able to get this to participate. You have to at least meet a quota of hiring a certain amount of retired citizens. I mean, not retired citizens. I'm sorry, returning. No. I want it specifically targeted to returning citizens when I'm talking about the cannabis industry.
I got you.
Because we have to use the policy to rectify the bad that was done. So look, if you a non-black business owner, for you to get any subsidy when it comes to starting a cannabis business that costs like 3-4 million upward to enter into it,
just to get the license,
right? You have to bring on so many returning citizens and highly at-risk youth that are Black American, specifically, ADOS, specifically. Why? Because we were the ones directly targeted in that era. Mm-hmm. So boom, that's one thing. So when people talk about, oh, you don't got solutions, yes, I do.
And I'm glad you want solutions too.
Because that's only one part. So not only do you do that, let's actually, okay, you teach them the classes, you let them get the certifications. You can directly subsidize them. Mm-hmm. These are the bags that I be trying to get because it's a subsidy. Look, and let me help you. You in the streets, right? And this is why it's a bag. You can get money from the government to help you start the business that you're doing in the street and do it legally and make more money off of it. I'm trying to fight that fight. Because why? I have nothing against the streets. The streets is what they are. Because whole time, politicos, elected officials, we all some fucking thugs.
Oh, yes.
It's all thuggery. We not going to talk about JFK up here today, but we understand mafia ties. I'm not against the black mafia. We just got to be organized as we do it. And we got to have fucking rules. Yeah. And because again, in other communities, you can do all the illicit activity, but once you step over a bound, you're fucking done.
Yeah.
You're done.
I want to say a Chicago mayor was a former drug kingpin back in like the 70s or 80s, one of them.
You're done. You're done. But we aren't having that conversation though. Because why? We got to deal with the class issue like you was talking about earlier. Mm-hmm. People scamming and exploiting. Because we don't want to talk about people scamming and exploiting because, oh, you just hating. Oh, it's haterism. Oh my God. You can't say that. You just got to turn a blind eye. And it's so wild that we can't have a conversation about the negative aspects of our community because what people don't realize is it's like, okay, let's say we nomadic, right? Let's say let's say we in the wild, wild natures of society. And this is why I want people to hear this and how dumb you sound when you say things like, oh no, we gotta just turn a blind eye to that and focus on just the positive. Okay, let's say we have a small community, right? And we go out and we kill 3 bears a day. That's our food, right?
Mm-hmm.
And when we wake up, 2 of those bears are gone immediately. Let's say from a rival tribe, right?
Mm-hmm.
It sounds dumb, illogical, nincompoopy to say to the leaders of that community or the thinkers of the community, why are you focused on the fact that we lost 2 bears? Why are you focused on the negative? Why are you focused on the negative? Because if we don't figure out why the bears are leaving, we can potentially starve because we don't have enough resources. And that scarcity, because it's only 1 bear now, is going to create a myriad of other issues.
Mm-hmm.
So, yes, we have to focus on what is happening to these other 2 bears that are leaving every time we go to sleep. And this is the even dumber part. The dumber part. Oh, you shouldn't think about that. Or let's give them the benefit of the doubt. Let's use plausible deniability. Maybe they're just ignorant that they're taking the bears, but maybe they don't know what's going on. Maybe they don't know. Maybe they don't know. They look, listen. You get the bears taken twice. Try to figure it out. But once, appreciate you, fam. You be out, man. Thank you. I love it. Love you for your support always. But now you're in a position to where you're constantly enabling the people to take the fucking bears.
Mm-hmm.
Because you're so hopeful that somebody who's shown you over time with the record, because this is the crazy part about Negroes, man. They will track record your ass to death. But when it comes to somebody who they either like or feel like they can't step to in a particular way, it's, oh no, we have to give them the benefit of the doubt. Why? Why? Even if they are doing it without ill intent,
They're still doing it.
the consequence is still the same. And guess what? In most cases, people are doing it with ill intent. Because over time, you understand what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
You just don't care. Which is why my position towards Joe Biden is more visceral than some other people who I may feel like are more talk. Yeah, we can have a conversation. Like, yeah, your stuff is dumb, but maybe you just don't know.
And see, I love the fact that you tied it all the way back to him. Because here's where I come in as far as solutions. Because on the community side and the political side, we were once a country that when someone went to jail, you were able to get into programs. You were able to get a PhD sometimes. There were stories of men who went into prisons and got PhDs because there were programs within these jails that really rehabbed people that went there. Jails used to be a place where they committed to the rehabilitation part in like the 70s and the 80s, where you had work releases, where prisoners had an opportunity to get skills and be reintegrated into a community with a skill. That's why I love that brother Kwame Brown when he talks about those trades. We had schools that taught trades. When I went to PR Hearst, we had auto mechanics. We had the cooking classes. We had skills. High schools used to teach you how to drive. Those programs were there in the schools. They were in the prisons where people can go and get skills that lasted a lifetime. Somewhere in the 90s, we started rolling back a lot of these programs, a lot of these things, boys and girls clubs, which were getting shut down for whatever reason, not getting the funding. We had organizations and we had things that supported young people to the point where they were able to sustain themselves
and have an outlet. But that's the thing, though.
In our city, we had go-go, where young people were able to learn instrument skills. We didn't have rap. We had people that wanted to play instruments. And you know why playing that instrument was so good? Is that once you learned it, you always had a way to make money. There's never a time where a keyboardist is out of work. You can go to a church and play the keyboard.
I know you pay for that.
I'm just saying, some churches do. But I'm saying, skills were a priority at one point in our America, across the board. Jails used to rehab people. We used to have programs for the youth. Our elders, because a lot of these things were set in stone by the time we were able to grow up into this. They dropped the ball on keeping a lot of these programs. And I'm going to put it out there plain and simple.
And just developing human capital.
Exactly. I'm going to put it out there plain and simple. Elders chose careers over communities.
And people.
They chose careers over community.
And please articulate that for people.
Because
I think some people are going to take that as, I can hear the rebuttals now. What do you mean? You're supposed to have a career. You're supposed to work, and you're supposed to be able to self-sustain and get your money, because those are things that are a part of life.
Okay.
So can you please?
And I get that. But what is being a citizen? What is being a citizen supposed to mean? There's citizenship that used to be taught in schools. And one of the parts of being a citizen is providing for yourself. The other part of being a citizen is providing opportunity for a community and being a part of a thriving community where it is beyond just sustaining yourself.
So you saying people just going to work and coming home and
going to happy hour.
Not even going to happy hour, but just no interaction, no community engagement is a problem.
Exactly. You don't even know. There are people that work in Washington, D.C. right now that can't tell you what the hell is going on in any of these communities. And they're the ones that's supposed to know this stuff. You got people in D.C. right now that work in programs that are supposed to address the needs of these communities, but they're so far removed from who these people are, they can't even effectively do the job. And I guarantee you, across the board, you have people in place in these government agencies that do not know real DC people. They do not know these communities.
Yeah, that is right.
They don't know these communities. They don't even walk the streets.
Because they're scared.
How can you do anything if you don't even walk the streets?
But this is where I say the acknowledgement of people and people who are doing the work is a really powerful thing, because until we begin to, and this is where the social policy comes back into play, until you begin to incentivize the behaviors, until you begin to create an environment where that particular behavior can thrive and create abundance, then you'll always have people who defer. For example, what do I mean? Right. So let's take our podcast for an example. Right.
Mm-hmm.
People have told me, shorten it down, do this, do that. I understand markets. And people always think that I don't understand markets or how to play the game.
Mm-hmm.
What I want people to understand is the reason that I don't do that is because I actually understand the market itself. Because what happens in that is that people don't understand that. Let's take how media has transformed, right?
Mm-hmm.
Everything, whether it be memes, sound bites, everything is digestible in like a 30-second to a minute clip. So people are always like, oh, Devon, you should make things shorter. You should do and condense it down. And this is another thing of lack of accountability because they don't understand that the reason that the market is doing that is because it's more beneficial for you to not be able to understand complex things because it can then further take advantage of you. Because what happens is people want to say, oh, had this I don't even like how people do how politicians do the not meet and greets, but they had the debates. And the debates happen within like 5-minute snapshots. But the issues that they're talking about, and the reason I hate it is because the issues that they're talking about require you at least 30 minutes to an hour.
Yes.
But what happens is that format is continued and reinforced because why? The consumer wants it, or the consumer is coddled by it as an extent.
Mm-hmm.
And what they don't realize is that there is no benefit to you outside of making you feel good. Because what I have to constantly explain to people is that the reason why I don't do that is because you won't be able to understand or remotely comprehend certain concepts. Not because I'm some super brilliant or I think that I'm better, but because certain concepts are very broad and vast.
Yes.
The whole reason that people are not being able to propose solutions to the issues is because we trying to do everything in 30 minutes. You cannot do that. Certain things require a certain amount of time, and that's all I'm saying. But again, people are like, oh, you think you're better. You're being condescending. No. What I'm telling you is, y'all want community change? You're going to have to get your ass up, go to community meetings, deal with people you fucking hate, sit down, read shit you don't like, consume meetings you don't like, so that you can understand not only your orientation, but their orientation to you. Because when you're in the echo chamber, you're not assessing the whole. I have to be able to see what the racists think. I got to know what they think, and I got to understand it to be able to even fight against it.
Yeah.
But again, people will say, oh, well, you don't really, why are you Democrat and all of this? I don't give a fuck about partisan anything.
Yeah.
The reason that I do it is because people are people. The institutions are mechanisms. They're vehicles for people. If you change the people within them, the institution itself changes as a result. And that's why I support Ado. Why? Because she gets it. Yvette Cornell gets it.
Yeah.
Yes, it's institutional takeover. Because institutions are inanimate objects. So if you don't like it, like people say, oh, well, you're a Democrat. Why are you critiquing Democrats? Because I don't fucking like the way that it is now. Because people are bullshit. Master bullshitters. But again, I'm just a hater. Or Devon, you can't win that way. Devon, you gotta toe the line. Understand that what towing the line is. Towing the line is only here as a vetting process for people who are imposing the game on you so that they can have you in a space where, yeah, they understand where you sit ideologically, but they know that you won't meet that force enough to move the needle. So pipe, their whole thing is you can come in, but you better pipe down first because all that what you're doing is going to move the needle, and you ain't getting up here if you trying to move the needle.
Exactly. Go
That,
get my coffee.
that's why the squad in them ain't saying a goddamn thing to Joe Biden. Joe Biden out here bombing Syria and what's homegirl's homeland? Somalia, bombing that motherfucker. Just raking that motherfucker. And she ain't saying nothing. Nothing. But well, guess what? Soon as the Republicans get in office, everybody gonna be like, oh my God, 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 oh my God. When Joe Biden is continuing the same tax policies, increasing the police state, doing everything that niggas complain about Trump with.
Well, he let them go up to the moon and buy the moon and still won't tax them folks. To this, he going to visit it now. He's appraising the moon right now. He like, yep, that right there, that's gonna cost about $15 billion. I got that.
The same way people don't hold people in the streets accountable, everybody's in their own echo chamber. The streets don't hold the streets accountable. The fake bourgeoisies don't hold the fake bourgeoisies accountable. The bourgeoisies don't hold the bourgeoisies accountable. And I say fake bourgeoisie because y'all niggas think y'all in the middle class and you're not.
Oh my God. I hate that term. Ain't no black middle class.
But they gave us the term to weaponize our ignorance. Because again, if you make people feel good about what they are and where they are, they don't actually care about where they are.
My thing is if you still supporting your mama, your grandmama, your sister, your uncle,
you're not in the fucking middle class. I don't. But again,
you are the government to your own family. How are you middle class?
That's another conversation for another day. But you know what? With that being said, that's a good segue into our boy, Cornel West.
Oh, yeah, right. Mr. West. Wake up, Mr. West.
So, as y'all know, Cornel West was having it out with what do you call this place? Harvard University, who also smeared ADOS, which is tragic. And now he comes out with this and says the school has lost its way. And I'll say that all of the schools have lost their way. Why? Because they are feeding into market behavior.
Exactly.
And market behavior, everybody thinks that you have to be conscious to be a freaking racist or a bad person. It's like, no, you just don't understand the outcomes of and the consequences of the actual behavior that you're participating in. So people get so defensive and it's like, oh, it's like, you just don't understand, bro.
Yeah.
You because racism was interwoven with the pillars of America, and just think about them as pillars, right?
Mm-hmm.
Our forefathers, founding fathers, were conscious tyrants. They created a system in which it would move on its own. They are now gone. They created propaganda. Their offsprings do not know what is going on because they are blind in a lot of different ways. And so we have a situation where people, capitalists, don't understand that if you participate in capital for capital's sake, you are a participant in anti-Black Americanness because it's not a black and white thing. It's we're bottom casted. Everybody who says, oh, why can these people integrate? Why can these people integrate? Because Nancy Pelosi just got up on TV and said that Hispanics are the future. Why? Because they're not Negroes. It's not about blackness and whiteness as blanket as y'all think it is.
Yeah.
It's deals that have been made.
Yeah.
But let's get into Cornel West.
We are the capital. I say it all the time.
Cornel West is one of the nation's foremost Black scholars and outspoken progressive activist, has announced his resignation from Harvard University, accusing the school of intellectual and spiritual bankruptcy of deep depths. Let's get into the letter. This is my candid letter of resignation to my Harvey Dean. I hope and pray you and your family are well. The summer is a scorcher. Here's my brief and candid letter of resignation. How sad it is to see our beloved Harvard Divinity School in such a decline and decay. The disarray of a scattered curriculum, the disenchantment of talented yet deferential faculty, and the disorientation of prescient students loom large. When I arrived 4 years ago with a salary less than what I received 15 years earlier and with no tenure status after being a university professor at Harvard and Princeton, I hoped and prayed I could still end my career with some semblance of intellectual intensity and personal respect. How wrong I was. With the few glorious and glaring exceptions, the shadow of Jim Crow was cast in its new glittering form, expressed in a language of superficial diversity. All my courses were subsumed under Afro American religious studies, including those on existentialism, American democracy, and the conduct of life. No possible summer salary alone side the lowest increase possible every year. Yet I delivered two convocation addresses and one commencement speech in 4 years. I was promised a year of sabbatical, but what could only take one semester in practice. And to witness the faculty enthusiastically support a candidate for tenure, then timidly defer to a rejection based on the Harvard administration's hospitality to the Palestinian cause was disgusting. We all knew that the mendacious reasons given had nothing to do with academic standards. When my committee recommended a 10-year review, also rejected by the Harvard administration, I knew my academic achievements in student teaching far less than their political prejudices. Even my good friends in the Afro American and Afro Studies department were paralyzed, given their close relations to the administration. And after teaching extra courses, including 5 courses in 1 year, this silence continued. When the announcement of death of my beloved mother appeared in the regular newsletter, I received two public replies. Just that of my colleague, Dr. Jacqueline Olga Cook Rivers, who received none of her blessed mother died when her blessed mother died. Any ordinary announcement about a lecture, award, or professional advancement receives about 20 replies. This kind of narcissistic academic professionalism, cowardly deference to the anti-Palestinian prejudices of Harvard administration, and indifference to my mother's death constitute an intellectual and spiritual bankruptcy of deep depths. In my case, a serious commitment to veritas requires resignation with precious memories, but absolutely no regrets. And I appreciate he put no regrets. Because what I want everybody to understand is that, look, Cornel West had it coming. And the reason that I say that is because everybody think they're the newest tool on the block. Everybody think that or want to again play the game like, oh, I'm gonna get close in proximity. I'm gonna get close in proximity, and I'm gonna do this. You can't do that. Part of the solution is figuring out a new playbook because the playbook we using is old and washed up.
Yeah.
That's why we keep losing.
Yes.
Y'all are using playbooks that are from times that are not applicable now. But I can't have a conversation with people because it's like, oh my God, you're focusing on the negative. No, what I'm focusing on is the way we're navigating. It's not working. It hasn't worked. Even for our most exceptional motherfuckers like Nicole Hannah Jones, Cornel West, Sean Diddy Combs even crying, Kanye West, the Jay-Z's of the world. All admit that it don't work. It don't work. You just end up a Negro in a space that can't say nothing. Because why? Part of the vetting process is figuring out how far you're willing or not willing to go before we allow you in. And with that, we isolate you based on that because we know that you lose people because people understand. Nancy Pelosi understood when she was getting AOC to do what she was doing and that she would lose certain parts of her base and that will further isolate her, making her more susceptible to coming closer because now you're trying to get more leverage because you lost the leverage because you were trying to placate the nefarious power. But what? You think niggas is dumb? No, these niggas is brilliant.
Mm-hmm.
They brilliant.
Mm-hmm.
But guess what? Because y'all don't get it and understand, and you want to give people the benefit of the doubt, you play right into their hand every single time.
But I get so, and I hear that argument. But on the same token, if you have that argument, why is it any pushback when I say this is why I hate affirmative action? Because it creates the exact situation that a Cornel West is in.
Because the reason that I give pushback is because you don't have to operate in that manner. Once you get the role, you don't have to operate in a manner. Because what happens is, and this is where I say this is a solution, if you stand true to the integrity, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because policy, in that sense, had quotas, right? Had quotas attached to it. So, with that being said, if everybody moved in a sense of integrity and got fired, it exposes the institutions for what they are. Yes, allow people in the space, but allow people in the space so we can see who and what they really are. Because if more people moved in a righteous manner, there would be no argument. The problem is a lot of people don't understand it, and a lot of people can't recognize it is because there's so many people willing to go along to get along. So you have to parse through, okay, is this institution racist or is it not? I don't know. Because they do have diversity. They do have these women around. They do have this around. But you don't understand that they're being silenced.
Yeah, they're being coerced.
So the reason I push back on when you say affirmative action shouldn't be a thing is because it should be, because it can be a weapon, a political weapon that can be used to mobilize and expose these motherfuckers for what they really are. But the problem is, and this is why I say yes, black people can be racist, is because they actively participate.
Yeah.
So when you actively participate and make yourself a tool to be used, you are racist. You're anti-black.
This is true.
What part of that doesn't make sense? So you have to be willing to, again, sacrifice, hold yourself accountable when you're in the space to make it work. The problem is Negroes is soft. Because every time I've ever been in a room, everybody want to hand clap me after I get out the room, get my asshole ripped open for saying what everybody knows is the truth. But guess what? Nobody says anything while you're getting ripped. Why? Because everybody's a coward.
Yeah.
And we don't want to admit that we're cowards. I'm tired of hearing about how white people are so bad and so boogeyman. Are there nefarious white people? Yeah, but most of us are cowards because we don't tell them and we enable them. We enable the behavior because a lot of you all want to do disrespectful things. Because what I'm not saying is that you all just need to be out here just lambasting people and in the way that you lambast people. But there's a way that I have had conversations with people. It's like, no, that behavior that you're participating in, it's actually, in fact, detrimental. I have to do it with black people and white people.
Exactly.
And Hispanic people.
Exactly. And this is where I'm at with it. I need more black mofos similar to a Cornel West to fail.
Yeah.
I need all of you to fail.
And not even fail, but just...
No. You need to fail. Because guess what? I would love for a Cornel West to come on down to these black communities that can really use your voice. So yes, I need you to step away from a Harvard. I need you to fail. Come on down to Southeast. I would love to see Cornel West teaching on somewhere down the street somewhere. I would love to see Mark Lamont Hill come on down
But they playing the game.
to Carvateurs.
The problem is they playing the game.
So that's why I said I clap when these white institutions do away with these tokens. I clap. I love it. I love it. Because I'd be damned. And I know we wasn't supposed to touch on this, but I'd be damned if I gotta be Van Jones crying on national TV that motherfucking Joe Biden got elected in the office just to get that money. I don't want one penny of Van Jones money if I gotta be that Negro just to be in America. Because that's what it's gonna come to if we don't start doing politics. Every black man gonna have to be Van Jones just to get $1 in America. And I'd be damn, I'd die. You could kill me right now if I gotta be that nigga just to live in America. I'd be damned, bruh.
They're gonna say you toxic
I
masculinity.
don't care. I'd be all of it. Cause that don't make no sense. I wish we could roll that don't make no sense. You got a grown man
crying about
somebody who locked his uncle up probably.
And crying about
and then lock his ass up.
An issue that been going on forever and again.
But these are our elders.
Yeah.
These are our elders.
They choose white men over us all the time, bro.
That's why I said
they choose the bad.
All of them need to I need all of them to fail. The same way I get a little bit excited when that Dow Jones drop, I need a few of these tokens. I need y'all to drop too because you need to come back home. All of you need to come back home. Cornel West, DCPS can use you. I know it ain't the Harvard bag, but you would be a great impact if you came down to Baloo and taught.
This is true. But man, again, we don't have the same interests, we don't have the same values. And so
but you got enough money.
What's enough money?
What you mean? What's enough
People
money?
Don't live by that.
Huh? And my thing is, here's my thing. It used to be a time where the older you got, the more radical you got. What happened to that? Like, you ain't got nothing else to look forward to.
Because the problem is, everybody hasn't secured the bag like they faking, like they making it seem. So they still trying to secure it. Because if you actually secured it, like you said,
what is there? What else is there to look forward to?
But they haven't secured it. That's why they still out here. That's why everybody's still out here faking it to make it. Because we don't really understand wealth. We don't really understand what it means to be middle class. Because we ain't never been in the middle class. We just got high incomes.
And high debt.
But you can't have a conversation with people about that because, again, the way Cornel West is moving and the reason that it fits all into this is because, again, we have to be able to have a conversation with people like that and say what you're doing is problematic. You're empowering an institution that doesn't have the interests of our community. It's in opposition to us, and you're just a diversity pick.
Exactly. So go get my coffee. Like, that's my slogan. Whenever these things come up, it's like you signed up for this. Go get that man coffee.
Or you tackling niggas like Simone Sanders.
Exactly. Go get the coffee. I'm tired of defending you. I don't care, Maria Taylor. Go get white girl's coffee. Go get her coffee because you signed up for it.
Yeah.
You signed up for it. If you want to go and you want to sign up to be in corporate America, go get that coffee. We tired of marching for y'all because you're not supposed to be there. You're not supposed to be. A black person, in my opinion, has no place in corporate America. You are a buffer. You are a buffer.
That's why I disagree a little bit.
You're a buffer.
I feel like you can be there. You just gotta move. You just gotta move with integrity.
But understand what your role is. And
no,
understand
that's the thing.
what
You don't have to bend to that role. You don't have to bend to that role.
In my
you can get
opinion,
cast out.
so in my opinion,
Allow yourself to be cast
so
out.
in my opinion, it's in the job description, damn near. Your day-to-day tasks consist of aiding and abetting our demise in a lot of these cases when we talk corporate America.
Yeah.
Especially when we get into like the marketing and all of that is aiding and abetting. So if that's what your duty is to give the social capital away for the bag, you signed up for it. Go get that man's coffee and shut up.
Yeah.
Go get his coffee. Because you giving away social capital when you really could be doing for your own community.
Yeah.
You perpetuating the stereotypes for these people to use to make their billions when you could be setting the standard in your own community. So go get that man's coffee and shut up. Because we tired.
And I think that's where, again, it all comes back around to that, because the accountability on both sides, because we have to have a conversation about our affluent community, is as well as we have to have about the quote unquote derelicts of the community. Because on one hand, people want to just like point fingers both ways, and it's like, nah, everybody got their bullshit with them. And this is why, again, when you talked about the budget, it's like, look, people want to say redirecting funds or defund the police is a issue, but what we got to understand is they aren't the solution. We can change industries and infrastructures, and institutions, and uproot them, because what can happen is it's like, okay, cool, as we defund or as we reallocate these resources, let's push police officers and remediate them into another industry that is actually going to be created as a result of stabilizing. So part of what has to happen is we have to destabilize. We have to uproot and go through the upheaval, which people are not or are running away from, not realizing that it's going to happen one way or another. It's better to proactively do it and say, all right, let's reorient these institutions right now, because America, the way it was oriented as a whole, is devouring everything in and around it.
Mm-hmm.
It has an insatiable appetite. Because for everybody who think they good, you 30 years down the line, bruh, the and I'm not going to talk about this because
it'll be a whole episode.
It's a whole episode in terms of the trajectory and the projections and the data that's in and around it. But I want y'all to understand, as wealth calcifies, people are going to, the nefarious people, because, and when I say nefarious people, I'm not just talking about white people. I know that there are fucked up people of all kinds.
Oh, yeah.
But I want the white people, the white majority, to know that if you don't think Reconstruction and reparations is the answer, I want you to know that your own and us, and not us, not me, but all of these fucked up people are going to devour you, because they're going to have to.
Yeah.
Because once we're gone, it's only going to be another group, and then there's going to be another group.
Yeah.
Because the thing, as Anna Arendt said, it's tyranny without a tyrant.
Mm-hmm.
This is a beast that has no conscience. It has been set by our forefathers and founding fathers, and it is moving in a manner in which it does not understand what it's doing. So we need conscious people to take over the wheel of the institution, because playing the game with the code that has already been put in place is only going to steer us off a cliff.
Exactly.
Black people, Black American people, understand that continuing to participate in the code that we've been given It's to our detriment. It should not be a case where you're telling people, or if you're in politics, you are only giving money to institutions and organizations who don't critique you. You're just as racist as the white people who you cry about.
Mm-hmm. And like for me, I laugh and joke about uh, Jeff Bezos buying the moon, but I say that to say this: when I talk about the way capital is moving, and when I hear seen talk about the tyrant, the tyranny without a tyrant,
Mm-hmm.
when I look at that and I read these stories about where the money is moving, the money is not being invested in people. I need people to understand when you see billionaires going out of space, when you really delve into the data of
While his
where
employees pissing in the bottle.
exactly pissing in bottles, when you see the amount of, I just want people to just Google search the amount of money that's being spent on the research of automation. This is where we're heading to. This is a very serious thing. So for people who want to play the racism and all of these isms, eventually what's going to happen is that the very people that you hate, even yourself, you will be replaced by robotics and an algorithm. So there will be no black, no white, no Hispanic, no anything to take advantage of. There will be algorithms. There will be robots that will run everything. And I might sound crazy, but Google it. Google the amount of money that these same billionaires that you're, oh my God, they're going out of space. Oh my God, they're Neil Armstrong and this, that, the third, and da 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 da. Go look at the amount of money that each one of these major corporations is putting into AI, artificial intelligence. And we're sitting here talking about racism. They're talking about wiping away humanity. But that's too deep. That's a whole nother.
That's because again, that
too
go
deep.
back into people not understanding that with every step of the way, we losing just so much leverage as a whole species. Like it's just going down the drain. And again, how does that all relate back? Because again, it's a lack of accountability. We have to really be more intentional about how we move, how we correct people, what we're correcting them on. It can no longer be, well, you just got to let that person do what they do. It can't be that. It can't be just, oh, I hope that this person ain't going to do bad after you didn't seen them do bad 20 times. It can't be that. It can't. But man, that's our show for today. If y'all want to call in, again, all of the links and stuff are in the description. You have to be on our YouTube or our Facebook. But man, we appreciate y'all for those who came out and chopped it up with us today. But again, we gonna be out. We gonna catch y'all. And thank you.